In the 8th year of marriage, because I encountered my first love, I filed for divorce from my husband who is worth tens of billions. I took the 2 billion assets divided by my ex-husband and remarried for love. However, I didn't expect that person to take me abroad and brutally kill me, and then return to the country to inherit everything of mine. On the 7th day after my death, it was deserted in front of my grave. Only my ex-husband brought me a bouquet of white roses. When I opened my eyes again, I actually returned to the day when I encountered my first love. Madam, which one would you like to wear tonight, this little Chanel suit or this Hermes silk dress? I'll take it to iron it. The nanny's voice woke me up from my sleep. At this moment, I am lying on the sofa at home, with a thin blanket that Leo covered me with before leaving still on me. Leo is my husband. We have been married for 8 years, but he is still as gentle and considerate to me as ever. In the past 8 years, he has worked hard to expand the company to a market value of tens of billions, enough for me to live a life of the upper class for 10 lifetimes. When I go out, I have a full-time driver with a Rolls-Royce Phantom. Every season, major luxury brands send me new clothing and bags for me to choose from. When I don't have time, there are 2 fitting models with almost the same figure as me to help me try on clothes. Among the 12 rooms in the house, 4 are specially set aside for my personal items. 3 Michelin-starred chefs cook for me in different flavors. 6 nannies and 1 butler arrange my daily life in an orderly manner. On my hand, I am still wearing the imperial green jade bracelet that he specially chose for me on my birthday yesterday, which is worth a building. I am weak and afraid of pain and don't want to have children. Leo said that being childless is fine. He is very satisfied with our world of 2. But it is precisely me who is taken care of so comprehensively that I will file for divorce from him tomorrow. Yes, soon, because I have been reborn. In my previous life, my full-time driver took a leave on this day, and the butler temporarily hired a driver for me to use. And tonight, I will accompany Leo to a charity gala, and this driver is responsible for taking me there. This driver is exactly my first love in high school. At that time, I was young and beautiful, and he was cold and individualistic. I had been a good girl for 18 years, and unexpectedly but reasonably, I was attracted by him. Later, my parents and teachers found out about this and forcibly transferred me to another school, thus cutting off contact. Leo is the spouse chosen by my father for me. He is very good, really, but he just can't give me the feeling of palpitations. So, separated unexpectedly and reunited after many years, like a thunderbolt striking a fire, after living for more than 30 years, I decided to follow my heart once. Anyway, my parents have passed away, and no one can stop me. I kissed him passionately in the back seat of the Phantom in the dark underground parking lot. Like a thunderbolt striking a fire, I tidied up my clothes 10 minutes before the gala started, went upstairs, and entered the venue with Leo's arm in mine. After returning home, my mind was still filled with that person's slightly weathered and heart-wrenching figure. When Leo wanted to be intimate with me, I pushed him away. Sorry, I'm a bit uncomfortable today. Facing Leo's somewhat surprised gaze, I reluctantly explained. But he was as tolerant as ever. He reached out and gently massaged my lower abdomen. His deep voice carried a unique sense of doting. Is it earlier this month? Then rest early. Tomorrow I will find time to take you to see Dr. G. Dr. G is a well-known traditional Chinese medicine doctor in China. Leo bought 1 day of his time every week at a price of 3 million yuan per year and has been conditioning my body all year round. But he couldn't take me there. Because the next day I filed for divorce from him. I don't know why, but I feel that life is a bit boring. You should feel the same way, right? Every day, I either go home and accompany me to watch dramas, have dinner, and take a walk, or work day after day. Moreover, my colleagues all joke that among big bosses like you, they have never seen one who is willing to be childless. Leo, find someone who loves you, just like you love me, and loves you so much that she can have children for you. I'm sorry for you. Leo was silent for a long time before he said in a deep voice, okay. Subsequently, in just 1 month, He arranged everything and gave me assets worth 2 billion yuan, including houses and cars. On the day when we walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, he gently hugged me. His clear voice carried a hint of a sob. I can't bless you, but I respect all your decisions. Later, I was with that person. I bought him a house and a car, paid for his parents' medical expenses, bought a college diploma for his sister, and even gave her 1.8 million yuan in advance as a dowry. He was very happy and cooked for me personally. Simple stir-fried greens and carrot soup had a unique, homely fragrance. And the fireworks that I had never felt in these 8 years. After getting along like this for 3 months, we went to get a marriage license and became legal spouses. For our honeymoon, I chose a foreign island and booked a detached hot spring villa, wanting to have a sweet half-month with him. But on the 3rd day there, I was forced to be swept away by the rip current. Yes, forced. That person pressed my head firmly until I floated in the sea and couldn't move, so I was carried away by the sea like this. When I was found again, half a month had passed. My body was gnawed beyond recognition and could only be identified by DNA. That person cried uncontrollably on the plane back to the country, but after landing, he hastily buried me and then inherited all my inheritance. On the 7th day after my death, it was deserted in front of my grave. The ground was covered with mud and water, and even passers-by frowned and avoided it. Only Leo, holding a bouquet of white roses, came through the mud. He, who has always been calm and steady, actually knelt in front of my grave and cried bitterly. Madam? The nanny called me again. I came to my senses and pointed to the cloakroom. Neither. I want that dark green cheongsam. That was custom made for me by Leo. He wanted to match it with my bracelet and surprise me, but I disliked it because of the color. The nanny was puzzled. Madam, didn't you still say last night that Mr. has straight man aesthetics and the custom-made one is not good-looking? I smiled. I was wrong last night. The nanny mumbled as she walked over. Actually, I also think it's beautiful. It really suits your temperament, madam. After all, it's something that cost hundreds of thousands. The material is really impeccable. I slowly stood up from the sofa, drank a cup of tea to suppress the surprise and excitement in my heart, and then put on a cheongsam. God has eyes. In this new life, I finally know what is good and right. The phone rang. It was Leo's call. Ava, the driver has arrived. You go there first later. I'll come after the meeting. I answered gently, okay. After hanging up the phone, I immediately darkened my face. The butler was a little puzzled. Madam, what's wrong? Nothing. Change the driver. I don't want to see that disgusting face again. But the butler said, this? It's impossible to find another one temporarily. Besides, there's not enough time. Why don't you make do with it? Then book a special car for me. In the past, I had obsessive-compulsive disorder about cleanliness, and was unwilling to take a ride-hailing car. Leo had also spoiled me so much that I had never driven on my own. But now, as long as I don't meet him again, anything is fine. The butler had no choice but to book a car for me temporarily. But the car was blocked by the property management outside the community and couldn't enter. I had to walk for 20 minutes to get there. Walking is fine. It's just a matter of ruining a pair of high heels. But when I carried my bag and went out, that person was already standing awkwardly beside the car. As soon as he saw me coming out, his face also stiffened. I ignored him and continued walking forward. That person's voice sounded behind me, with helplessness. Ava? I'm sorry. I didn't know it was you. But I really need this daily salary of 2,000 to pay for my dad's medical expenses this week. In those years, he was the school bully, extremely handsome and cool, and there was no one else in his eyes except me. When had he ever begged someone in such a tone? I paused for a moment. For some reason, I felt a little sour. But this sour feeling is not for him or for myself. In my previous life, half of the assets that Leo had earned with so much effort were actually given to this person by me. I fulfilled his greed and my selfishness, but trampled on Leo's sincerity. The butler's voice pulled me back to reality. Madam, the special car driver has cancelled the order. What do you think? The villa area is too remote and it's not easy to get a taxi. In these days, it's not easy for ordinary people to earn money. Naturally, they also want to quickly take the next order. After all, I couldn't be so cruel as to leave a child here. I took Kyle back to my tent and asked him without looking back. Tomato flavor or braised flavor? Kyle didn't speak, so I made him a bowl of instant noodles with tomato flavor. When I put it on the table, Kyle ate quietly. Suddenly, his eyes turned red halfway through eating. Mom, you never let me eat instant noodles before. My adoptive parents passed away when I was 10. I grew up on my own. When I returned to the Hazel family, my biological parents favored Bella even more. They were guilty and careful towards me, appearing polite and distant. So I don't want my child to lack the love of his parents. I took care of Kyle's diet all by myself. I pulled out all the lilies I liked in the backyard and planted fruits and vegetables that he liked. I was always afraid that there were additives in the noodles sold outside, so I planted wheat myself. Every year, I ground flour and watched videos to make all kinds of pasta little by little. So, instant noodles were something that would never appear in front of Kyle. It's already good to have instant noodles. Many people may not be able to eat them even if they want to. Don't be picky. If you can't stay here, let your father take you back. I said this and continued with my materials without paying any more attention to Kyle. Seeing my indifferent appearance, Kyle seemed to know that his tears were useless. This time, he didn't cry. He just ate instant noodles quietly. Xiaoqing, why are you here? I'm so worried. I've been looking for you for a long time. Suddenly there was a commotion outside the tent. Bella hurried in wearing high heels. Seeing the instant noodles in front of Kyle, Bella didn't even think about it and directly overturned it with one hand. Xiaoqing, are you hungry? Auntie has chocolates and biscuits. Come back with Auntie and I'll give them to you. The bowl of instant noodles was overturned and fell on the ground, splashing juice everywhere and making a mess. Ah, I didn't mean it. Bella was stunned for a moment, but didn't take it seriously. It's just a bowl of instant noodles. If it's spilled, it's spilled. Supplies are scarce in the disaster area. This pack of instant noodles was left by me because I didn't eat it in the afternoon. I said coldly, Bella, wasting food and dirtying the tent. Apologize. Bella pretended to be pitiful, looking weak and delicate. I didn't mean it. Is there a need to be so aggressive? This is the same trick again. Ever since I returned to Hazel's family. The always arrogant Bella seems to have changed. She has become considerate, weak, and weepy. Under her manipulation, my reputation for oppressing my older sister and being domineering quickly spread. She has been learning dancing since she was young and uses high-end skin care products. Against the background of me, a country bumpkin who has just returned, she appears even more pitiable. I once wondered if my biological parents couldn't see through her scheming and were thus deceived. Until I heard the conversation between Leo and his brother. I know Baiji deliberately let Hazel bump into her. But so what? Baiji has been pampered since childhood. It's okay for her to be a bit delicate. Hazel should give in to her. Give in, give in. The most frequently heard words since I returned to Hazel's family are give in. Fine, then I'll give in. Leo is yours, and Kyle is yours too. I don't want the Hazel family or the Gu family anymore. I didn't want to have a pointless argument with Bella anymore. I got up and left, planning to spend the night with my colleagues. Mom. Kyle suddenly called out to me. Standing there small and tiny, he looked up at Bella and said, Aunt Baiji, it's your fault. Apologize to Mom. Bella was stunned for a moment, a bit confused. Me? Apologize to her? There was also a hint of disbelief in her tone. The three of them were in a stalemate. Kyle ran to my side and tried hard to reach for my hand by standing on tiptoe. Mom, don't be angry. It's my fault. I shouldn't have said I was hungry. I didn't move at all. Kyle's voice gradually became choked with sobs. Mom, Mom, Mom. Not knowing what else to say, he just kept calling me Mom. Tears dropped quickly and soon formed a small pond. Bella's face was not good as she came to pull him. Kyle ignored her and dodged and struggled. In the midst of the tug-of-war, Kyle was accidentally pushed onto the table by Bella. The bang sound made people's teeth ache. Bella was stunned and was about to look at Kyle's arm, but Kyle was crying loudly at this moment. Get out, get out. I don't want you. I want Mom. I could no longer remain calm. I took the broom behind the door and directly hit Bella's arm with it. Get out. You can even lay your hands on a child. Bella was beaten by me and left in a flustered state, hugging her head. She even lost one of her high heels and ran away. I held Kyle in my arms and carefully looked at the place on his arm where he was hit. Does it hurt? Kyle's eyes were red. He leaned his head on my shoulder affectionately. Mom, you finally hold me. A child's skin is tender. Soon, there was a large bruise, but fortunately, no bones were injured. I applied medicine and bandaged Kyle. His nose was red, but he didn't make a sound. I suspected he was enduring the pain and looked at him several times. Kyle sensed my gaze and said softly, Mom, I am very obedient. Don't drive me away. After a whole day of commotion, the child's energy was also exhausted. Kyle soon fell asleep. Before falling asleep, Kyle couldn't help but cry and asked timidly, Mom, did you miss me after you left? Even a little bit? When you left and didn't want Dad anymore, why didn't you take me with you? At this moment, I suddenly realized. Kyle harbors resentment towards my leaving. Until midnight when I was lying in bed, Kyle's accusation still echoed in my mind. He asked if I missed him, questioned my neglect of him, and doubted my love for him. But how could I not miss him? He is the child born to my beloved Leo. When I was 5 months pregnant, the fetal condition was unstable. I don't know how many miscarriage prevention injections I had. Those thick and long needles seemed endless. Just after leaving the Gu family, I cried every day and couldn't sleep every day. I was afraid that the Gu family wouldn't take good care of him. I was afraid that after Leo married Bella and had a new child, he would no longer pay attention to him. When I signed the divorce agreement, I didn't want anything and left everything to Kyle. I only asked the Gu family to treat him well. I once secretly went to the Gu family to see him, hiding in a dark corner. Kyle was playing with building blocks in the yard. When he got up, he fell and soon burst into loud cries. The nanny who was supposed to be by his side at all times didn't show up for a long time, leaving the child crying. I was extremely angry and almost couldn't help but come out and take Kyle away. Leo, since you kept Kyle, why don't you treat him well? If I had known you were like this, I would have fought to take Kyle with me when getting a divorce. But soon, hurried footsteps came. Leo picked up Kyle with a nervous expression. Bella held a toy and gently coaxed Kyle. The child soon stopped crying and laughed, shouting for Aunt Baiji to hold him. I hid my palm that was bleeding from being pinched and left the Gu family silently. I asked myself in my heart, does Kyle lack this love from me? Perhaps not. But I lack it. I lack a love. So I decided to love myself. The next day, I brought Kyle to Leo. Take good care of him and don't let him run around. Leo took Kyle's hand and said in a low voice, he insisted on coming to find you. I couldn't stop him. Then he can't run around either. There are people coming and going here. There may still be aftershocks. It's very dangerous. Got it. I will watch him carefully. After saying these few words, Leo and I had nothing more to say. Once an intimate lover, now there was only silence between us. Are you tired here? Do you want me to help you? Leo was obviously trying hard to find a topic, but I had already turned around and was in a hurry to go to work. So I casually pointed to the side. If you're free, go help move supplies. When I walked out of the tent during the afternoon break, I was surprised to see the person in front of me. In my impression, Leo is cold and refined, always looking like an elite who is high above. At this moment, his suit jacket was taken off and tied around his waist. His carefully styled hair was also messy. He and Kyle, one big and one small, huddled together in a dusty state, sharing a box of instant noodles. When they saw me come out, they both looked up at the same time, just like two stray dogs. "Hanmei," Leo called me. At that moment, Kyle had already rushed into my arms like a little cannonball and shouted, "Mom." Before I could say anything, Bella suddenly appeared. She was wearing a white dress and had delicate makeup on, which was completely out of place with the entire environment. "Brother Leo, why are you here and still doing these tasks?" Bella anxiously ran over and was about to use a tissue to wipe the sweat off Leo. Leo dodged and subconsciously looked up at me. But at this moment, I didn't have any attention to spare for him. I looked up at the area behind him and was somewhat pleasantly surprised. "Oh, you can stand up." Behind Leo was a very tall man wearing camouflage clothing and leaning on a branch. Tyler looked at me and smiled. After I ran over, he turned around and walked in 2 circles for me to see. "I'm mostly recovered. Hanmei, you've really had a hard time during this period." Afraid that Tyler was pretending, I carefully touched the wound on his leg. Seeing that his expression remained unchanged, I was relieved and also smiled. Just when the two of us were chatting, a small figure suddenly rushed out. Kyle, who was unprepared, was pushed aside by this figure. Kyle glared angrily at Tyler. At this moment, Leo's voice also came from behind me. "Hanmei, who is he?" Leo's tone was a bit difficult. "Is he your boyfriend? I met Tyler in the hospital a year ago. At that time, he was with a child. The child had a high fever and he was pacing back and forth anxiously. I happened to be on night duty making rounds, so I comforted him. After getting familiar with Tyler, I learned that he was actually a soldier. This child was rescued by him during a flood disaster and is now adopted by him. Meeting him again on the front line of the disaster area this time is also a fate. Especially since he injured his leg again while saving people, I admire him even more and am very concerned about his injury." At this moment, hearing Leo's words, I really can't help but feel disgusted with him. Leo is still the same as before, high and mighty, completely not considering how much trouble his words will cause others. I'm too lazy to pay attention to him and directly turn around and want to pull Tyler away. But at this moment, Kyle next to me is not willing. He tugs at the corner of my clothes and shouts at Tyler. "Get out of here and stay away from my mom." Kyle even no longer cares about the etiquette he learned since childhood and sits on the ground. While kicking Tyler with his feet, he shouts for his mom and holds on to me without letting go. Tyler is obviously also very confused. Looking at Kyle sitting on the ground, he says, "Hanmei, who is this?" Before he could finish speaking, a child also rushed out from behind him. As soon as he saw Kyle, Max frowned and unhappily went to push Kyle. "Bad guy. Who let you push my dad?" The 2 children quickly started fighting, kicking each other and punching each other. When they were pulled apart, both children were injured and were glaring at each other in defiance. Kyle looked at me pitifully. "Mom, apologize." I interrupted his words and squatted down to check Max's injury. Max obediently raised his face for me to see and gently called me Aunt Hanmei. Perhaps it's because I took care of Max when he had a high fever. Max is very attached to me. Because Kyle is not close to me, I am completely helpless with children who are so attached and trusting to me. I couldn't help but lower my voice and carefully blew on his wound and asked if it hurt. Kyle's eyes turned red. Suddenly, he rushed over and punched Max in the face and shouted, "She is my mom." I shouted not to fight. As soon as Max heard my words, he quickly stopped obediently. But Kyle still went crazy and punched a few more times, yelling "bad guy" at Max. I pulled Kyle away and threw him into Leo's arms. "Take care of your son." I really don't understand why Kyle has become like this now. Rude, hot-tempered, wild and unreasonable. Leo suddenly raised his head. His eyes were red and his voice trembled. "He is also your son. Why do you only care about other people's children and not him?" Bella also ran over at this moment and glared at me angrily, scolding me for being cold-blooded. The 3 of them all glared at me like this. It really seemed like a family. I suddenly wanted to laugh. I tried hard to curl up the corners of my mouth, but found that I couldn't. It was Kyle who was unreasonable and pushed others first. He made the mistake first, I said wearily. Leo had already picked up Kyle and turned around to look at me coldly. So what? If you don't favor your son, who else do you want to favor? So, as I said before, the Gu family is unreasonable. Their hearts are biased. The people they love getting everything is their way of dealing with things. So even though it's clearly Bella's fault, Leo will still without hesitation let me give in to her. So even though the teacher just taught Kyle about politeness, equality, and friendship the day before, he can still mock my name and appearance without any scruples. I closed my eyes. Obviously I already knew long ago. Why does my heart still ache in waves? Aunt Hanmei, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have fought back. If I didn't fight back, there wouldn't have been a fight. Max gently pulled my sleeve, his eyes full of guilt. He took out the lollipop that he had been reluctant to eat and put it in my palm. A child's apology is to use what they think is the most precious thing as an apology. I unwrapped the candy wrapper and put it into Max's mouth. It's Aunt who should say sorry. Because Aunt has caused trouble for you. Leo and Kyle never came to find me again. Bella came a few times instead. For some inexplicable reason, she started blaming me. I was extremely annoyed. I took a broom and chased her out. On the third day after the earthquake, aftershocks suddenly occurred. At that time, I was bandaging the wounded. When I felt the vibration under my feet, I immediately and without hesitation helped up the girl on the bed and ran outside. At the moment the building collapsed, I pushed the girl out and was myself trapped under the ruins. When I woke up again, I felt aches all over my body. I opened my eyes with difficulty. It was pitch black in front of me. I could vaguely hear the faint sounds and chaos outside. I don't know how many people were injured in this aftershock. I felt very bad inside. Enduring the pain, I don't know how long I waited. Finally, footsteps came. Leo's voice shouted loudly outside, Hanmei, where are you? I opened my mouth but found that due to lack of water, my throat was so painful that I couldn't make a sound at all. Not far from me, a weak voice came, Brother Leo. It was Bella's voice. The girl said, Hanmei is here. After such a long time, she must be in danger. It was Tyler's anxious voice. But Baiji is calling me. It's right here. Leo hesitated a little. Her voice sounds like she can hold on for a while. Hanmei hasn't responded for a long time. Why don't you ask her? Leo really asked. He asked Bella if she was injured and if she could hold on. Brother Leo, I'm actually with Sister Hanmei. But she hasn't made a sound for a long time. I suspect she has met with an accident. Bella's tone was weak but very clear. She was lying. I wasn't with her at all. There was at least 10 meters between us. Bella was afraid that Leo would come to save me first, so she lied. I heard the sound of clearing heavy objects coming from where Bella was. I didn't know whether Leo believed Bella's words or simply just wanted to save her. But I didn't care anymore. Finally, I couldn't hold on anymore and fainted. When I woke up again, there were two faces, one big and one small, in front of the window. When Tyler saw that I woke up, he exclaimed in surprise and called me repeatedly. How are you? Is there any discomfort in your body? Do you want some water? I was helped up. Max carefully picked up the cup with his small hand. Aunt Hanmei, drink water. After I drank 2 glasses of water, I felt that my parched throat was relieved. After Bella said those words, Leo believed her and frantically dug with his hands. But Tyler didn't believe. The girl I rescued had a good memory and firmly said that I was here. So after 3 hours of clearing, I was finally rescued. At this time, I was already on the verge of death due to blood loss. If it was half a moment longer, I might lose my life. I looked at the bandages wrapped around Tyler and Max's fingers. Especially Max. Such a small child hasn't even cried out in pain until now. I was very guilty, I'm sorry. Tyler stopped my apology. He even made a joke with me. Helping the masses is everyone's responsibility every day. Max also hurriedly chimed in, Xiao Xiao also has a responsibility. The 3 of us all laughed. Just when the atmosphere was just right, there was a movement at the door. Leo rushed in. At the moment he saw me, Leo's expression relaxed and his knees went weak and he fell to the ground. Fortunately, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay. Leo's expression was crazy. Tears welled up in his eyes and he was almost unconsciously murmuring to himself. He cried and laughed for a while. His face was frantic. Max was so scared that he kept hiding in Tyler's arms. You guys go out first. I'll talk to him, I said to Tyler and Max. After they went out, Leo crawled on his knees and staggered to me. His tone was full of surprise. Han-mei, I slapped Leo on the face. My tone was very cold. Leo, don't go crazy. In my memory, Leo has lost control like this only twice. The first time was on the night of our wedding. The century wedding of the Gu family and the Hazel family was broadcast live by media all over the world. Leo was very gentle to me all day. I was really flattered. I kept practicing in my heart the words I would say and the expressions I would make when Leo came in later. I hoped to leave my most beautiful appearance tonight in Leo's heart, but I waited for a long time. Until 3 o'clock in the morning, Leo still didn't come back. The light in the study was on and there was a slight crack. I heard Leo making a video call with Bella. Bella, don't think that I can't live without you. I can marry whoever I want. Bella's voice was very charming and also very cold. Whatever you want, Leo. Listen carefully. I won't want a man who has been married twice. Leo also sneered, even if I've been married 10 times, I still won't marry you. After hanging up the phone, Leo suddenly threw his phone hard on the ground. Playing hard to get? A fake Hazel family's daughter is also playing hard to get with me. Leo was mean with his words, but his eyes were so red that tears were about to fall. The second time was the night Bella returned to the country. Leo was very drunk. He mistook me for her and humbly begged me to turn back. At that time, I was sure that Leo was not a good person. Neither for me nor for Bella. He was selfish, impulsive, and mean. On the surface, he loved Bella, but in fact, he only cared about his own interests. A person like Leo, no matter who he marries, will make that person live a bad life. But before I decided to divorce, I found out about Kyle's existence. For ordinary people, the meaning of a child may just be the continuation of descendants. But it's different for me. My adoptive parents have left. My biological parents don't love me. The Leo the first married is not a good person. Looking back on my life, I don't have deep friends either. I've always been alone. If I die, there will be no one I miss before I die. So, after this child who is connected to me by blood appeared, I hesitated. This is the only person in the world that I can love unreservedly. Perhaps also the only person who will love me unreservedly. I softened. To give the child a complete home. I am willing to start over with Leo. But I bet wrong. Leo knelt on the ground. For the third time, I saw his loss of composure. Honey, I don't love Bella anymore. It was just my pride in the past. In those 3 years, I had already fallen in love with you. You are kind and gentle, completely opposite to me. So on the one hand, I resisted your approach, but on the other hand, I was always attracted by you. After you left, I had no contact with Bella at all. This time it was just by chance. The Hazel family had to send a representative to donate supplies. I didn't expect it to be her. Leo explained for a long time, but I remained expressionless and didn't say a word. His body trembled. And ching-ching. As if grasping a life-saving straw, Leo hurriedly spoke. He misses you very much too. In the period right after you left, he cried and made a fuss every day and didn't want to go to school. The first thing he says when he wakes up every morning is whether mom has come back. You don't know, he has planted all the backyards with lilies again. A 8-year-old child, one by one. His hands were worn out but he didn't let others help. As Leo spoke, his eyes reddened and tears fell again. He pleaded. Honey, please have pity on me. If you don't want to see me, go see Ching Ching. He came here on his own, clamoring to save mom. His arms are full of scratches. He tripped over a stone and is now unconscious. In his sleep, he keeps calling for Mom, and his voice is hoarse. My always expressionless face finally showed a hint of fluctuation at this moment. I frowned. Didn't you find a doctor to see him? Seeing that I finally spoke, Leo quickly replied, I did. But the doctor said it's because the child has something on his mind. Seeing his mom will make him better. Leo looked at me carefully and pursed his lips. You don't need to move. I'll bring him here. When he is talking in his sleep, you just answer. When Kyle was brought over, he was sleeping very restlessly. Just as Leo said, he was also calling for Mom in his sleep. I looked at this child who I once regarded as the whole meaning of my life. When Kyle was little, he was actually quite clingy to me. When he was still innocent, his eyes would light up every time he saw me. He didn't want anyone from the Goo family to hold him. He just wanted to stay on me. How could I not love him? In this life, I may not love anyone else, but I will never not love my child. So when Kyle later shouted that I was embarrassing, I was so hurt. It doesn't matter who in this world says anything about me. Only you can't. As if sensing my presence, Kyle's sleep-talking voice gradually got louder. With a start, Kyle suddenly woke up. He saw me leaning on the bed. Kyle couldn't stop crying. He still had a slight fever. His cheeks were red. Struggling, he wanted to jump down and throw himself at me. Mom, don't abandon me. Don't stop loving me. Kyle cried so much that his voice was almost hoarse. Tears fell on my neck and were so hot that my skin started to burn. I will be obedient. I am very easy to raise. I can eat only cabbage every day. I will plant vegetables for Mom. I can also plant flowers. I will plant whatever Mom likes. My body stiffened and I couldn't move for a long time. When Kyle was about to cry himself out of breath, I finally hugged him back. I didn't abandon you. What does an 8-year-old child understand? The gossip of the Goo family and the ridicule of peers in kindergarten. When I was little, I was still ashamed because of my mother's shoes with exposed toes and didn't want to walk with her when I met classmates. When I grew up, I could freely say that I grew up in the village. When I was little, I cut pigs and raised ducks. But what does an 8-year-old Kyle understand? He only knows that because of his mom, people are pointing fingers at him. The always spoiled eldest grandson of the Goo family seems to be one step shorter in front of his classmates because of this. I didn't stop loving you. But you need to apologize to Mom. I said. The divorce agreement from 3 years ago had not taken effect because Leo didn't sign it. Now we sat together. Leo was like a statue, his throat was hoarse. If you can forgive Ching Ching, why can't you forgive me? I shook my head. You are different from Ching Ching. What's different? Leo pressed me, but when I didn't speak, he didn't ask anymore. Leo gave me half of the Goo family's property. I said I could do without it and just take Kyle away. But Leo shook his head. He said the Goo family couldn't keep Kyle. After going out, I made a call to the media. Bella is Andrew's illegitimate daughter. Her mother is the nanny of the Hazel family who resigned 3 years ago. After saying this, I hung up directly. In fact, I had already uncovered this secret a long time ago. Father Hazel was afraid that the relationship between husband and wife would break down and didn't dare to tell. The most pitiful person in the entire Hazel family is Mother Hazel. She is not good to me and gives all her love to Bella. She has protected Bella many times and let my reputation be ruined and I be targeted. But that weak trace of family affection also made me hesitate and not tell this secret. Mother Hazel is in poor health. I was afraid she couldn't bear it. I even thought it would be good if she was kept in the dark for her whole life. But this time, Bella almost killed me, which made me determined. In the Hazel family, Father Hazel is a son-in-law. Mother Hazel is strong and controls the industry. Once the news spreads, Father Hazel and Bella will definitely be driven out of the Hazel family in a sorry state. And Mother Hazel has the right to know the truth. I took the property and Kyle back to the city where I work. At night, Kyle held my arm and gently swayed it. Mom, do you like Max? Why do you ask? Do you hate him? I asked. Kyle didn't speak. After a long time, he rubbed against me and got into my arms. I hate him. He took away Mom's love. I am no longer Mom's only child. I couldn't help but touch Kyle's head. Don't talk nonsense. You will always be Mom's only child. Love cannot be taken away. Mom will always love you. Then will you be with Uncle Cheen? Kyle asked. I was a bit confused by the question, but I still carefully explained to him. Mom and Uncle Cheen are friends. Not all male and female friends are lovers. Oh, Kyle answered. After a while, he leaned his head over again. Mom, if you like Max, I will also try to accept him. Then Mom will have two people to protect her when she grows up. The hand that was touching his head paused. I never expected that Kyle, who has always been possessive, would say such a thing. Seeing that I didn't speak, Kyle thought I was unhappy and said cautiously. Mom, I'm sorry. I will never fight with Max again. I just want to make you happy. Mom, I want to change my name. Can I be called Winter? Have the surname Hazel like Mom, in the winter when cold plum blossoms bloom. I looked at the little Kyle in front of me and suddenly understood Leo's words. The Gu family can't keep Kyle. Why? Because this child has the same persistence in the blood as me. Kyle doesn't need the position of the heir of the Gu family, nor power and status. An 8-year-old boy needs a lot of love. So for a lot of love, he unconsciously learned to give in. All right, go to sleep. I coaxed Kyle to sleep and waited until the room was quiet. Gently dropped a kiss on his forehead. Mom will always love you without any preconditions. 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 Preconditions.